Hi everyone, Beth Barany here with a laughing husband. Beth Barany here with How to Write the Future podcast. And I'm here today with my husband, Ezra Barany.
Hi.
Yay. We are experimenting with a little series of episodes where he asks me questions and I answer them. And he'll chime in with his answers, I hope. So this is How to Write the Future podcast. We are here to support science fiction and fantasy writers and anyone who cares about the future to help you envision and write stories that I hope will be positive and optimistic versions of humanity, of what we can become. And both Ezra and I are working writers, and we're here to enlighten and lighten the load, have some fun, give you some tips. And of course, we're here also for your questions. So if you have questions, be sure to ask us those questions in the comments section of wherever you can post comments, or directly contact me through howtowritethefuture.com. And stay tuned to the end, where I'm going to share a way that you can get even more information about helping you write your science fiction or fantasy novel. All right, let's take it away. Today's topic is
space operas.
Space operas.
So here's my question.
Yeah.
So when people sing and perform where there's no atmosphere out in space, is that a space opera?
Absolutely.
Okay. Next question.
I had people performing outside the space station in my Janey McCallister science fiction mystery space. I can't talk. And the official name is Janey McCallister Mystery Series. She is a space station investigator, and she works in a fancy space station.
And they were dancing in that one,
yes,
right?
Yes. And in the first 4 books, she works at a hotel casino. Think Bellagio in space. Yeah.
Great. So what is a space opera?
Okay. What is a space opera? So I envision a space opera as a very dramatic series of stories that take place in space, often on spaceships, that involve power struggles, family dynamics, interpersonal dynamics. It has a broad scope and it's dramatic and it involves personalities. Let me think of a good one. Elizabeth Moon has some space operas, and it's like a space shipping family, and every book has some big adventure involving some family members, and there's forces acting against them. And so you got your drama and you've got your adventure, and then you've got this sense of a saga, and it's usually involving societies on different planets or in different spaceships, that kind of thing.
Great. Here's another question that's right off the top of my head, just out of the thin air. What are the essential building blocks needed to make a complex interstellar society feel authentic and coherent to readers?
Just off the top of your head.
Just off the top
of my head. Yes, we did prepare ahead of time. Yes. So similar to any kind of story you write, you're going to want to have your different factions and your different groups. And actually, Ezra did a great episode on thinking about the different groups in your society. You're going to have your hierarchies, your power structures. So think religion, economics, supply chain, education. So when you want to create a complex society, you're not going to create one priest or one teacher or one captain. They're going to be part of a greater group. So then they're going to have competing ideologies, competing philosophies, and worldviews. So you'll want to think about all of those, including people affected by the bigger decisions of societies, like creating a world for any kind of story in science fiction or fantasy. It's going to have different kinds of people doing different kinds of things with different agendas. I know that's very general. How to make it more specific. I think of Star Wars. Star Wars is a good example, y'all, of a space opera, right? You don't just have your fighter pilot. Luke Skywalker is not just a fighter pilot. He gets trained. There's commanders. Of course, there's opposing forces, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So actually leading from that is a part of making it so epic. All those different philosophies, etc. So how do you make that epic feeling of a space opera be so intimate with the characters? How do you focus? How do you keep the readers emotionally invested?
Yeah, good question. Yeah. So what you want to do is, and this is, I think, my specialty, and how I write and also how I help writers, is really develop your character to be fully realized. Of course, you want to think of what they want, the goal, why they want it, the motivation, what's in their way, the conflict, but also their strengths and also their secrets. We love teaching about the secrets. And also you might want to think about the worldview, their philosophy, and how that came to be so. Some of the other things I like to think about is how they perceive and feel about their relationships, their core relationships. You learn a lot about someone thinking about those things. What else? Their secret, I'm going to come back to secret. The thing that's in their heart of hearts that they yearn for that maybe they don't tell anyone. What they prioritize in their environment. That is actually something I consider important. Like in their home space, what's important. In their workspace, what's important. In their vehicle, what's important. And hobbies. Hobbies also shape how we view the world. And lastly, something that's really fun to pull out, and Elizabeth Moon does this really well, is what is your main character's or point of view character's favorite story, fairy tale, motif, hero from Storyland. This allows you to bring in, some people call it the imaginal, their imagination, their favorite stories, because that tells us what they love and how they were shaped. And so it's not an institution versus an institution. That's not an interesting story. But if you've got a pilot and she's got to deal with her commanding officer and her fellow pilots and the mechanics, and then I'm thinking of Starbuck in Battlestar Galactica.
Yes.
Battlestar Galactica, right? Starbuck isn't so, none of your characters are in a vacuum. They're interacting with others all the time. The powers that be, the people who clean their clothes, the cooks, their parents, their friends who aren't doing what they are doing. Create a well-rounded character and write the story from their perspective. And now you're going to have something that's emotionally relatable in this vast, epic scale of the story world that you're creating.
I also think the main character in Dune, how there are these expectations imposed on him, and we see him grow up with these expectations, his talents that are supposed to be fulfilled, and his training, and his desire to get away from that sort of those expectations. We see the epicness of the story that manner.
Absolutely. I love that. And their expectations, the expectations that he's carrying, that he has to respond to, fight against, the prophecy that's on him. How does he respond to that? And it's all channeled through him, his actions, his words, his deeds, his interactions with everyone.
Great.
Yeah. Good. Any more questions for us on this topic? Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up.
That's it.
Great. So we're going to wrap it up for today. If you would like more support with your world building, then I recommend that you check out our world building workbook for fiction writers, where I ask you a bunch of questions, give you a bunch of prompts, and you can use that as a guide to dig into your story world. And that's it. Oh, be sure to contact us if you have any questions at howtowritethefuture.com, or leave a comment on YouTube or on the blog post where we put this up, or anywhere else you can leave a comment. Tag me on social media.
Feel free to mail us a pizza.
There you go. That's right. All right, everyone. Write long and prosper.